Ready? Martin va Karsten, agus farte go comedy call agus spoon structure. Fiach bishuluk samach. Gaelic translation is available at today's meeting. Please ensure that you have your headphones on if you require translation services. Den of keenach gewil na microphone akaf agus mistóisig sin éir sin in a chorliche féuleg steward treurig le fachkel úrni. Agus a chuniú neska klare.
As we come into your presence once again on this day, we give thanks, Lord, for this day. Again, Lord, for your goodness to us, for another day on mercy's ground, we give you thanks. And Lord, as we meet here today at this committee meeting, that you would bless each one of us. Bless the chair and the vice chair, and bless all our members, Lord, and the chief executive and his staff, and all the CONA staff be with them. We give thanks, Lord, for the work that is done here, and we pray, oh Lord, that all the decisions that would be made wisely, and that we would seek to have a unity even when we disagree. We thank you, Lord, again for the opportunity to meet here and to represent the people of these islands. And for that, Lord, we thank you again. Lord, be with us and go before us at all times and all situations. And Lord, today remember, Lord, those who mourn. We hear so much bad news, even this morning, and we pray, oh Lord, for the families that have sore hearts on this day. Some in our own islands here, and others in other places, but have relatives in the islands. We pray, oh Lord, that you would be near to them and they would know you. Oh Lord, go before us at all times and be with us, Lord, in all our own homes and families. And Lord, we all come before you with all different needs and different wants. We acknowledge, oh Lord, that you don't always give us what we want, but you always give us what we need, and we give you thanks for that. So Lord, go before us now and forgive us for our many sins, for our many shortcomings, and for our many failings. And all we ask is in Jesus' name. Amen.
An de daimh die studig na coniu, pwydyn na lennes na'r Kenya, mae hasib na'r bawlt yn comedy agos y ffiolwch dyr computer ffag yr camera eid agos yr microphone Mae ha officyn yn y ffiolwch dyr computer ffag an dachwyd, mae'r elsio fy bdyn di asg no ffigwrs cysht. Pwydyn gwyn bwyl agos officyn gyfer system ffef na siawmar ha smach ek an gariche in a max, a chiirtine a feo a boilske goanje, agus be an gaar oanje nan stad. Han oje likkes an gariche a stech maik ariche a maik guterak. A vi ach da wak terak ek aimsen bi. Ma ha se verson tilleku kist fak over maik agus ma ha afgegeen a bien die ask horlichen ojef an roet an nu roet de jano. Ik pianwachus a horste bwyl a chometi. A hyf clari an uich fe mi bwyl an diawmar acol no ciach a chwy ein gael. Pynich ik gyfel a chwniw ca clarig agos an diwy na cwniw gewr glarach lin na corla. E cwsper yn y hyndiag agos gagiag ag alan a diamar ag didig na cwniw. Agos mis tacha sin heit iori loch comparst a hylig an offiged imachi agos bwyl a chwniw aca. Nest immerag, welm immerag a horsted meisted neus moeig, Charlton en Wasig in de wiense geschegd. Gaan je vatten wel ik neus je agriach ek gehoorlijk en je daar leon de dichtje te helwes ek. En nou maar fiab wannetje roilig. Agus wij a kopit kutlu les comedy show en de duif die roilig agus policy in Cornwall. Wie en jonge we eeuwigheid geëind in Comoor, as lene comedy bewa lium ar ko allig in duurigkig a goed ko heilig nieuws ik een langshow. Musclóisín go na peamhúsperin é a chláir óprach, ba bhheilm aie bhuaile haring go láhairt rial agus aisecin san nám dí teach héit a chumal ag tí céad in seachcolách an dúlach ag teiciúin sa mátain, agus bholainn don na buil ule seo a rialach masoringa. Glóise sin inis go gear chúndasan agus chéad húsper, gear chúndas na cóniú é fichte lách an dúltain da bhíle fichtsaga agus a seoirstán úndachag. Bhil siú gundachag? Siú tálicht a gléfa. Dar a cúsper gear chúndas cóniú haitan sa sialách an damer da bhíle saga ríche agus a seoirstán fistrachag. Dris cúsper chláir a úid, ma ha úid ag buil an a gúsper san bhí a chláir óprach ba chórgaibh sin a chláir. Bhí a féúmal a níos ag buil an dober a dhibhile a chláir ag ús a chúsper. Dhearan is buil san deamar sin a dhéanú an drásta le bhí a cuid i microfón nó is Teams le bhí a clechga an buchtan tógáil live. Déanamh cíneach go bhfuil senca inimecha a dhíos an cúsper imimechaí agus go bhfuil se bheith lentar an ghlechga mar a chaid a bhíine chu héan. Míl daine chláir a gúis, an dheal, ach go leh. Glóise sin is go...
Just ask if people online can hear the translation okay?
Bhfuil a chula daine ar lein cas clóindal sa clóindal neatrangachach. Are you all hearing translation?
I can't hear it online, Ushton, Grant here.
Team to get in touch with them. Team to get in touch with Grant and help them out.
Okay. I'm not fees available to you, Harrit me. Ha nás seo míneach lisach é rá ílach siúil cníabach agus planich in skíar íse gail. Ha haiten sa tar taichan orla an a bhí a lisach rá ílach agus planichin agus mi tolte fáilte chuid éid wiki trefar of ik a siúil cníabach haiten sa ha stúdig a frósegt. Bíní calamach cynnig agus wiki dís an náis agus frictiad kisten sem bí. Lustol dosioch chalam.
Application. Cola considered a year ago, December 21, the active travel strategy document. Since that time, Vicky Trelfa, on our behalf through HiTrans, has been developing some master plans for some of our built up areas in the Western Isles. So I'm happy that Vicky's here today and be able to talk us through some of the work that's been ongoing over the last year. She'll share a presentation with you and we'll both answer any questions afterwards. So over to you, Vicky, if you want to share your presentation. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Just give me a second. There we go. You should be able to see it now.
Yes, we're seeing it, Vicky.
Perfect. So thank you for having me here again. It's good to see you a year later. I'm going to give a quick overview of the 6 active travel master plans and how they were developed, and then look at what comes next. I won't go into any detail on the master plans because you can have a read through the ones that are most relevant to you yourselves. I'll skip through, give you a brief overview of them. So just a reminder of the active travel strategy objectives, which we developed a year ago. So within communities, the strategy looks to create safe routes to school, appropriate high quality infrastructure and speed limits, and safe routes to places where people want to go. And then to create a network of routes between communities, including improvements to the Hebridean Way cycle route. So in partnership with the Corolla, Hightrans commissioned Arup to undertake a series of active travel master plans as part of the delivery plan for the active travel strategy. The master plans were developed through a review of policy, strategy and baseline data with virtual site audits, which included virtual walk around with local stakeholders. There was local engagement with schools and the wider community, and there were stakeholder workshops and one-to-one meetings with community representatives and council officers. So the master plans set out a series of recommended actions for improving active travel infrastructure and public realm in the larger settlements through the Western Isles, which will support the prioritisation of works and applications for funding. At this stage, the recommendations are very high level. They just give an indication of what could be done with outline costs. And further feasibility and design work and local engagement will be needed to progress any of the suggestions in the master plans. So just a quick skip through. In Stornoway, there are recommendations for around 6 kilometres of high quality active travel infrastructure, which is separated from traffic. There are quiet streets and neighbourhoods which create more attractive environments for people walking, wheeling and cycling. Improved crossing points and junctions, which helps pedestrians get to where they're going. And they suggest travel behaviour and awareness campaigns to facilitate a cultural shift towards more people walking and cycling in Stornoway. In the other settlements, because they're smaller, the recommendations are less, a little bit more easy to achieve. So it's things like safe routes to school, 20-mile-an-hour limits and public realm enhancements in Tarbert, Lochmaddy, Ballybanic, which has already had some works over the last 18 months or so. Lochboysdale, including a route through to Dalaver, and Castle Bay, where I think there are some plans afoot to make some improvements with the community complex there. So what comes next? Several potential delivery partners have already come forward through the development of the master plans. For example, NHS Western Isles are very interested in improving active travel access to their sites, which includes Stornoway Hospital, which is on one of the key active travel routes in Stornoway. I've spoken with Storis Uist, who are working with Highlands and Islands Enterprise to develop and deliver a vision for Lochboysdale, which could incorporate many of the master plan recommendations. In Lochmaddy, Hightrans are hoping to secure funding for improvements to the pedestrian route from the new pier up towards the village. And the Barra and Battersea Community Company have funding from Sustrans to develop an off-road path in Castle Bay. So as funding for active travel increases from 2024 onwards, the Corolla and delivery partners will be in a really strong position to request support to deliver the active travel strategy and the pipeline projects identified in the master plans. Projects could be supported through place-based investment funds and regeneration funds, as was the case for improvements in Ballybanic last year. So lots of scope for funding towards active travel and public realm improvements coming up, and these master plans will really support that. So I'm happy to take any questions, which you can direct to myself or Calla.
Ishton, ag Dennis and me. Barley news, Moyeston.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the work that's been done on this, and it's a good project, but I just wonder, are we missing the trick here? It's good to have cycleways and active walkways through the main towns, but what about main roads linking in between the spinal route, and I'm talking particularly about Tarbert to Stornoway and down probably the Ness area as well, and down to Tulsta, where there are probably all areas of the island where there's a lot of traffic to visitor sites. And you mentioned the Hebridean Way walkway connecting safe cycleways and pathways. Where I live in Ballalan, the Hebridean walkway is actually directing people onto the main road in 2 areas, and there is no pathway for people to go onto. And I've seen on numerous occasions people having, cars very close to hitting people that are walking the side of the road, especially on corners. I know we're not alone here, but it's quite frustrating when you're driving into Stornoway in the summer particularly, and it's good to encourage visitors, cyclists, and we have had an abundance of cyclists this past summer and previous summer. But when you see a tailback of traffic that can't get past the cyclists, it's an accident waiting to happen if we don't provide pathways and cycleways on our main roads. So it's just really what the next stage is, and can we develop something into the areas, you know, that are of, where we've got danger sites basically. And I mean, corrections to that one, Balaran again.
Alan?
We're having to prioritise what we do. All the things that you've suggested, Councillor Morrison, are things we would like to get to. We've looked at developing master plans for the main settlement just now as a first step. We'd like to look at all communities, looking at schools as a hub, and then looking at safe routes to all schools. So it's not that we're missing a trick or haven't thought about these things. It's that we need to prioritise what we do in terms of the resources we have to develop them, and also the resources we may have to actually deliver them as well. So, Vicky, do you want to add anything to that?
No, just to say it's a really good point, and to agree with you, Callum. It is included in the delivery plan, but you know, we have limited resources amongst us, so we're kind of just working through what needs to be done. So it's coming in the future, but we haven't quite got to it yet.
Well, thank you. Just as a wee follow up on that, could we not look then at
Alan? Although, if alla vi just. A för det kunde så då. Yeah.
I think an answer to your question. I got the question, Councillor Morrison. There are many priorities across the Western Isles in terms of areas that we would like to improve. We've looked at these main settlements first of all just now. We can come back with more lists for where the council would like to prioritise, but there are many areas with various problems that we would like to look at. And I think maybe that's a further exercise we can do with the council, is come back, give more a comprehensive look at active travel, look at proposals, but allow you then to prioritise. To jump in to prioritise specific sections just now, I don't think I could actually do that.
Diolch, den beca neifach, coinio sy'n yw.
I think there are many areas like that where the main roads are used as part of these routes. But there's also priorities of roundabout schools. And if you want to look at a school and encourage children to cycle and walk to schools, that's another priority. So, sorry, there are so many priorities, and that's why I was suggesting that we maybe take these back to you, and you can assist in that prioritisation process.
Shaken news.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for it to come. That's it. Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. McKenzie. I'm happy for it to come back, but I would like, if at all possible, that we look at that area in particular, because, and I'll be happy for maybe a road safety officer to come and visit with yourself, Mr. McKenzie, the site in question where we are in a corner on a road, and there are people who are, and I have witnessed it myself, where people are near misses with traffic because they're actually directed onto the road from the Hebridean walkway.
I'm happy to to look have a specific visit there. But as I was saying, there are many members in this chamber just now who will probably come up with similar issues throughout the whole of the Western Isles. So, yeah, happy to look at that particular place. I can't promise any direct prioritisation of that just now.
Agus a tóir éag de tíine ans sé tíochsúla chuma lenne béarna na sinnach am smuoineach cin. Kenneth? Okay.
First of all, just repeating what he said, it's the same on Barra. It's the main roads that are used for almost the entirety of the walkway. But outside of that, was it mentioned in the presentation that, sorry, I'm trying to find my notes, that the Barra and Battersea Community Limited was seeking funds for a pathway in Castleby?
Yes,
Vic?
it was. They have funding from Sustrans for design of, it's called the Heron Walk, and it runs more or less from the road out of the pier around towards the sports field, I think, if I'm right.
Yeah, it's just, okay, that's fine. It's just wondering because that's been tied up in legal issues for years now with McNeil Barra. I'm not sure if it'll be done anytime soon. It's been years since I've known about it anyway. That was all. I was wondering if it was an alternative path or the same path or what have you. Thank you.
All Crichton?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just wondering if we could have some clarity around the financial situation in terms of the scheme. The presentation suggested that there'd be Scottish Government funding from 2024. And just need clarity, is that full funding for any plans or priorities? Or would the corner be expected to match fund any proposed scheme? And given, as you know, our capital programme has been cut in half, that's going to be very difficult to realise some of these schemes if that's the case.
Colin?
I'll let Vicky come in and give a bit more detail on that. But yes, the first stage is developing master plans to come up with ideas, and Vicky had mentioned that there's quite high level ideas just now. So the next stage is to do some detailed design on some of these priorities. That'll give more clarity on what the cost would be. We'll then get ourselves ready for when money does become available from Scottish Government, that we're ready to develop some and deliver some of these schemes. Vicky can maybe give a bit more information on the level of funding and the timescales for that, if you're happy to do that, Vicky.
Vicky?
Yeah, no problem. So there is a piece of work going on just now at the Scottish Government looking at exactly how funds will be administered for active travel going forward. In the past, each local authority receives a fund called Cycling Walking Safer Routes, which they can use for basically any form of active travel improvements. I think originally it was focused on safe routes to school, but it's been widened out and that does not require match funding. So the assumption at the moment is that it will be an expansion of that scheme, so more money will come into local authorities via that route. There may be additional project-specific funding for local authorities who have a pipeline of projects which are designed up and ready to deliver, but nobody quite knows how that's going to work yet because it's a significant uplift in funding. So there's a commitment from the government to allocate 10% of the total transport budget to active travel, which is about £300 million, I think, which is about 3 times what's allocated just now. So it's going to be really significant and will really help with local authorities meeting their 20% vehicle reduction targets and their climate change commitments.
Well, that's a significant investment, which will hopefully mean that we don't have to match fund any of the projects proposed. Thank you.
Gorlick, Paul Finnegan. Paul?
Thanks, Chair. It was just for regarding Tarbert. It's just I see you've done the road going out of Tarbert heading east towards Scalpy, which is good because a lot of walkers use it to get to the head of the Uriga Walk and the Renedale Walk, so that's good. It's just going to. Can I just get you to maybe consider as part of the plan the other side from going out of Tarbert to our Tassie. A lot of local people use that for exercise, for running, and for walking, speed walking and stuff. And obviously with the traffic coming in there, we sort of looked at it in terms of speed in the past. And I'm not sort of talking about 20 mile an hour, but even just to add it to the plan. And if there's a chance to do something on that side of the road, of that side of the village as well, that would be great as well. Thanks.
Vicky?
Thanks. That's really good feedback. Thank you. Yeah, the route out to Scalpay was something that had come up through the community engagement work, and something that I had also occurred to me is connecting up to the quiet routes and the route out to the beach. So yeah, thank you very much for that. We'll put that in too.
Yeah, a lot of tourists walk out from the Harris Hotel and walk out along that road to get to the Regnerdale path and the other path, and they do the loop. So yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Gornlich Callum McLaren.
Thanks, Chair. When we're developing a master plan, should we not emphasize first of all the use of walkways for the local population first? Because I'm thinking of, for instance, I look at the cost of, for instance, the road going out the Lochs Road, where there was a cycle route going out there, which must have cost a fair amount of money. Would that not have been better put into accessing routes for children? I can think of my own ward, and when a number of people have come to me, some parents in my own ward said that they would love their children to walk to school, but the road is not suitable for it. It's a single track road, and there's a drain on one side and a big huge drain on the other side, and they cannot therefore they cannot walk to school. Surely the first priority should be local use rather than use for tourism. I'm sorry for taking a wee criticism of tourism here, but I'm taking it for the local use first of all. And I think that would be what Mr. Mackenzie did say. There is a need in my ward especially for developing the roads that we have at the moment for children to go to walk safely to school, and we haven't got that.
I don't disagree with that, and that will be part of this project as well, to look at each school in each area and make things better and safer for children to travel to school. It's again, it's a matter of prioritisation. I'm sure your own ward and other wards would have the same requirement. So it's about building this picture, and the master plan, the strategy will mention these issues. It's when we come into then planning each of we've probably categorised it. So we would say the next areas we may look at would be schools and safe routes to schools, and then looking at each of the areas and what we would do as a master plan. Again, a first stab at what's desirable, and then delve into the detail a bit more. But it is a matter of prioritisation, being able to deliver what we can deliver when we can deliver. That particular area in Lochs, there's 2 blind summits on a bend, which is why it made sense to put in a safer route in that particular location. Again, I'm sure many others will have different views on what the priority should be, but we can only do what we can with the resources.
Staffa?
Thank you, Chair. I know obviously the objective of the master plan is to ensure safety and active walking, especially for school. Would the master plan as well look at the general well-being in terms of transport plan, especially public transport? As we're aware, most public transport in the island, when it exists, because most of it doesn't exist in a lot of areas, it all just serve the school, and anyone that want to do any activities, especially in small villages after 5 o'clock, there is no public transport. It's very limited on Saturdays and Sundays. So with the master plan look beyond the safety and look at the general well-being and coherent of, how we deliver improvement in the and just general travels between communities.
I'll
Just because I saw the NHS involved, so is that their contribution, or is it something other areas. So thank you.
I'll let Vicky come in on more of the detail on that, but Jen, it's a good point, and it is a bit of a difficulty we have in that, you know, how well is the public transport system used? How often do people use it? If there was more public transport, would it then stop people using their own vehicles? It's got to be part of it, but there's a bit of a culture change as well required, probably in many areas. But I'll let Vicky maybe come in and answer a bit more on that. Can you do that, Vicky?
Vicky?
Yeah, thank you. So the active travel master plans are really focused on walking and cycling. But the active travel strategy has come out of the local transport strategy, which looks at all forms of transport in the Western Isles, including public transport. And there is an intersection between how people get to, for example, bus stops and what the facilities are like there, which would be included in the active travel master plans. But that it won't address how frequent the bus service is or if there's a bus service at all.
If you
Can
like,
you hear
a
me?
minute, Kenneth, let Mustafa back.
Oh, sorry. I didn't quite catch the last part of what you said there. Did you say that health was involved in this?
I think I drop out at the end there. I think my connection is not very good today. So NHS Western Isles have been in touch with me to say that they are interested in improving access by foot and bike to all of their sites across the Western Isles. So they are involved to that extent. I don't know if they have any funding to bring to the table, but they may be able to access sources of funding and working in partnership with Corolla and ourselves. I think they're a great partner to work with. So wellbeing is included to that extent.
Okay, well, I guess I'm just highlighting an issue some of you are already aware of. On it's about patient travel. On Barra, patients are now referred to Stornoway instead of Glasgow like they used to be, almost exclusively and somewhat forcefully, which creates issues because it can take 2 days to get from Barra to Stornoway.
I think you're going off topic here, Kenneth.
Okay,
The-
I'll raise that
yeah.
later on. Sorry,
Yeah.
apologies.
Mustafa, did you want? Yeah. Orkestic Dennis Biela. Okay, Vicky, more in time. Thanks a lot, Vicky.
Thank you very much. I'll see you again, I'm sure.
Ja, dag belegd. Bwyla gynda chwg na molyn ag 3 pwynt hyn. Dag belegd. Gwrs yd yn esgo cwsbyr y cwg. Rhianach cianatys, da filis ga ddichet, ddichet rai y gael. A nask sio is son fisrach as dorst tar helig I rwy'n dyn hedefys for smach yn lis offigyd an y dain fi comedy call agos buntstructor ag rai y gael. Fi'n I column ach cynnig sy'n son ask agos fixi kishtin sy'n bein column.
Thank you, Chair. The corporate restructuring now been complete. Municipal services and property and infrastructure have been combined. So the performance management report has also been combined. I'll continue to give an update on the property and infrastructure side of things, and David MacLeod will continue to update on municipal services. So starting off with the property and infrastructure, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail in it. I'm happy to take questions on it, but I would just highlight the current areas of focus. As you're probably all aware, budget management is key for us at this point in time. Not that it always hasn't been, but the focus just now is making sure that we're managing this year's budgets and with an eye to what the following year's budget may look like and our ability to deliver the services that we do. So we'll be looking at wherever we can make savings and efficiencies, looking at our operations, in terms of roads, properties, marine services. All of these, we need to be looking carefully at where we can do things cheaper or more efficiently. So that's our general focus, probably even more acutely now for us. We're also looking at accommodation and property. It's been well seen, it's been mentioned in this chamber before about where we are with making better use of properties. Some of them are well under capacity. So we are working with public sector partners and voluntary sector as to how we can make better use of the facilities that we have. We're also looking at future investment requirements. We had a capital seminar just last week. The amount of capital that's looking to be available to the Comhairle over the next 5 years is well down on previous years. So there's some difficult decisions to be made on what we invest in. And that'll come back to members. And just following on from the corporate structure review, we will have to look at various sections and look to see where further structural improvements can improve the efficiency of the service. We're looking at the IT function just now, just to make sure that what we're doing aligns with the requirements of the Comhairle. So I'm happy to take any questions on what I've just said or any content of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Ceist ag Dennis y Bee. We got eich gyn eisiau Gordon. Gordon.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Mackenzie, for the report. It was just a question I asked yesterday about energy audits and how often they happen, and just to review the estate and any potential savings that could be made, you know, with our renewable energy potential to address the cost of rising energy prices. So I wondered if there was any energy audits or whether increasing how the environment is changing quite rapidly.
Yes, it's quite a wide question, but in terms of energy consumption, we look at the electricity costs on a monthly basis to see, you know, what the trends are basically, and then we supply this information to departments on what their top 10 energy use is. So that's something we've been doing anyway. The energy costs as well, a lot of them, so now the higher we have two general tariffs. One would be what you call it, the larger sites, which are on a different tariff. We've tied into a contract with that, which is quite beneficial. So the costs there are pretty much under control for the duration of this contract. The smaller sites, which aren't tied in there, we've seen quite an increase in the standing charges, which has increased costs there as well, and the tariffs. So I think that the general message on energy costs just now is that they're more or less manageable within the uplifts we've had for budgets. But we do need to keep a closer eye on what these trends are, making sure that operationally we can manage what we're using. I mean, it's getting the message out to people as well. It's just quite simply as switch lights off when they're not in use. So that kind of general information will go out to all staff as well. Looking at the estate and where there's possibly areas where we can rationalize, so we're not using that amount of energy. That's part of it. When it comes to renewables, we are tied to a certain extent in that what we can actually put into the grid is restricted. So we have in the past put solar PV onto some of the schools, some of the buildings. When it comes to putting something a bit bigger, wind turbines maybe an option in the future. That's something that we will look at on a site-by-site basis. The Creed Park wind turbine has been very effective for us and provided benefits there. But yes, I agree with you. We need to look at that and probably expand more into it when the environment suits us. In terms of climate change, establish the subgroup of the Better Hebrides Community Planning Partnership that's looking at potential impacts of climate change. So whether it be weather patterns or tidal increase. So the background is happening with what you're talking about, and I agree probably needs to be a bit of focus in the future as well, and coming up with what we can actually achieve in these.
Tony to Gordon.
Yeah, thanks. So,
Yeah.
so wide ranging.
Yeah.
Wide ranging answers.
Councillor Crichton.
Thank you, Chairman. I think perhaps the greatest challenge we have in terms of, well, the greatest example we have of the challenges we're facing with rising energy costs and the rising costs of maintenance, maintaining our estate and properties is the very building we're actually sitting in, which has increasing costs in terms of energy and in terms of its maintenance. And I know that we've in partnership with other public sector bodies coming under our roof or our umbrella. Perhaps we need in the near future to have a discussion about the future of this building. And it might be a good example on how we can cut our efficiencies, the cost of our efficiency, of our rising energy costs and our maintenance by looking at the future of this building and others in the estate. I'm just putting that out there. Find that kite.
Yeah, you're right. This is the biggest building we have, you know, as an administrative building within the estate. I mean, there are some of the larger schools as well have significant energy demands. Where you have swimming pools as well, they have significant energy demands. So, yes, I mean, this building here is aging. It's not the most energy efficient, but what we intend to do is look to where there are funding streams available for making energy efficiency improvements. But you're right, Councillor Crichton. You have to look at this in its context and its use and what can physically be done affordably to make it more efficient. So I don't disagree with your comment, and I would support it that we really need to look at our larger buildings and see where the ones can be.
Alan McAlaren.
Thanks, Chair. Could we have a report back detailing the properties that are actually we own, inhabit, or whatever we like, that are, with the energy costs of them and the occupancy rate? I'm sure you're working on this. I think I brought this up as a topic sometime this week or last week, and that you are working on looking at rationalizing the buildings you have. But if we could get a report, I don't know if that's feasible, on each of the buildings that we're using, for instance, the town hall, the library here, other ones as well, and find out exactly what the occupancy rate is and the costs associated with these buildings. And then I'm sure you're working on that anyway. So it would be quite handy to have.
Yes, we have that information. I'm happy to take that to a future meeting. I mean, even before a future meeting, I'm sure we can pull that information together to share with members.
Oh, that'd be smashing. Thanks.
John Orman.
Thank you, Chair. I think Jan Yarchi was in before me. If you want to put him before me, or all right, okay. Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions for Calla there. We've got a fleet of electric cars. What's the cost comparison just now between running electric cars, or what's likely to be the way the electricity is going compared to fossil fuels? You know, your diesel or petrol. That's just one quick question, maybe a quick answer, not sure. The other one is following on, something I mentioned a while back, maybe it was last year, I can't remember exactly. It was about the lighting around schools. Now, I think I did get an answer back saying that we had to have lighting around schools because of insurance purposes. I mean, is there possibly a way around that, or is there a cheaper way around that? Because when you think about it, all the schools lit up in the Western Isles all year round. That is quite a much and quite a significant cost. Thanks.
Dank je, stem het.
Two easy questions. The first one, I'll maybe defer to David on that one. Personally, it really depends on the vehicle you're running, and what kind of travel you're doing with that vehicle. I don't know if David, do you have any further intelligence on that?
Thank you, Chair. There is a big difference between running an electric vehicle using your own electricity and running an electric vehicle using commercially purchased at a charge point electricity. And I think that's an important factor. If you're charging at home or with us charging Corla vehicles on a Corla electrical supply, then the cost benefits for fuel are probably about the equivalent of about a third. So if you're compared to a litre of petrol at 150 at the moment, you'd be paying the equivalent for the same sort of range for 50 pence if you're using your own electricity. If you're getting that electricity from a commercially operated charging point, then it tends to go towards maybe paying anything up to, some of the charging points in the mainland now are up to £1 a kilowatt, which is roughly about the same price as petrol, per mile. So I think there is a big distinction. If you plug your electric vehicle into your own supply, then it's significantly cheaper to run. If you plug it into a commercially run charging point, then it's more expensive or equivalent to petrol or diesel.
Your second question, in terms of school lighting, yes, it's something that we're aware of. We've converted quite a lot of the school lighting to LED, which is saving on costs. We try our best to switch off as much lighting as we can. So if there's lighting in car parks, we make sure that's the parking areas around schools, that's switched off. But it's round areas that we're concerned about vandalism, then we tend to leave them on. We could take the step of putting it more into using sensors rather than leaving the lights on. So again, it's an area that we're acutely aware that we need to. So it's so visible and a use of energy that it is something we need to look at.
Visible. Right, Garliche McNeil. I'm just going to come up to you.
A couple of wee questions for Calla. Calla, could you explain to me how electric tariffs actually work, and in particular how this works with street lights? This time of year we get a lot of complaints about street lights being off and on, and what times they should be off at, and could they be extended, etc. It's a seasonal complaint, as you know. And my other question is, and unfortunately, you never made it down to Barra as planned earlier in the month. The state of disrepair at the Corrie facilities at Venus and Battersea really need looked at as a priority. And what's our plans to do something about these facilities before they actually do some serious damage to boats or operatives that are working in these areas. Thank you.
Alan,
okay, street lights. So the street lights are unmetered, which means that nobody reads a meter to then charge us for them. What we have is an inventory of all our lighting, which we supply to a third party, and from that there's an assessment of what the power consumption would be, and that's the basis that we're charged on. So where we have, say, street lights in main settlements that are on all night, then that's part of the inventory. So we actually tell them what the burn hours are. Most of the rural areas, streetlights will go off at 11 and then back on at dawn. So again, that's part of the inventory. And so we don't get charged for the electricity that they potentially could consume. So we're actually charged based on what we tell a third party we use and what our inventory is. So if you do see street lights that should be off being on, say even during the day, that's more likely to be a fault with a mechanical clock. So we've converted most of the timers and clocks on the streetlight infrastructure to digital. We still have some mechanical clocks that can give us problems. We can have problems after a power cut. So we're not paying any more. We pay for what we actually state that we're using. So we usually find as well this time of year when the lights have been generally infrequently used over the summer months, and now with the demand on them getting greater through the winter, then we generally do get more faults noticed and reported to us. But we do have a rotational system of dealing with that. We don't react to every light that goes off as soon as it goes off. We tend to deal with things on an area basis. So I hope that explains that to you, Councillor McNeill, the charging tariff and it.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Carla. So is it potentially we could look at extending some of these streetlights in you know, sort in the more built up areas which are particularly dark at night, since it's not going to cost us any more.
It will cost you more. If we tell the third party every light that we have and its burn hours. So if we intend to increase the burn hours, we would have to inform that party that we're increasing the lighting hours, and therefore we will get charged more.
Okay, so you know that it's like an honesty box approach to it. So okay, so what's the process then for requesting extended hours in certain areas? Obviously, you have to put a case forward and to justify it. I've had various representations as regards dealing with the streetlights, which seems to be a bit of a dark area, to put it into a proper context when it comes to getting sorted out.
As niet toch het geen je gerste.
De tafelecht maar zie je me vallen.
Right, Callum.
I think the decision to cut the lit hours of street lighting was made by the council back in 2011. So over that time, there have been some areas that we've looked at on safety grounds, say where maybe people are coming out of public establishments late at night and it's near open water or near a pier or harbour. We have looked at these areas. There's been many requests to have it extended, but also requests to do away with street lighting in areas completely. So in one way, I would like any request to come in on behalf of an entire community and not individuals. We also have to bear in mind that that would be an additional cost, and it would have to be applied consistently across the Western Isles. So there were decisions taken, probably on financial grounds. We have looked at areas where there's been requests for extending lit hours in the past. However, we have to bear that in context of the financial situation we're in, what the community requirements would be, what the safety requirements would be, and what mitigating factors that people can actually take if they know that the area that they're in is going to be unlit after 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock or whatever that case may be. So I hope that answers your question, Councillor McNeill. You know, each one would have to be taken in absolute context and taken into account what the financial implications would be consistently across the Western Isles.
Right, dear Akers, Hannon, do me on the day,
Ardvinish and Battersea. Yeah, yes, I'm sorry I didn't get to Barra that day. I'm aware of the issues that have been highlighted there as well. Harbour Master is here as well, and if he wants to come in to answer any of that. But what I would say is that we need to look across at whole Harbour's estate as well in terms of the investment that is required or desirable or affordable. So having a master plan is something that we aspire to have for each of these facilities. When it comes down to specific facilities, I'm happy that the Harbour Master looks at them and can, within the resources we have, make whatever improvements that we deem necessary. But on these specifics, I don't know if Kenny would like to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Councillor McNeill, I mean, with regards to assessment of these facilities with like Ardvinish and Battersea, we have had them assessed as part of our structural assessments. I'm not aware of anything that is specifically a danger to vessels, so I think I'd be happy to take any report on that. I mean, we have a port operative down in Barra, and I'm not aware of anything that is specific, but I'd be happy to take anything that but in terms of, I know that as part of our assessment that there is work required there. But again, this is as we come to the end of one capital programme and move on to another one, which is going to be, as all reports, significantly reduced. I think there's going to be big pressures on our infrastructure.
Thank you both. For example, the dangers to vessels was where fendering was, and the fendering has now gone, but the fixing bolts for the fendering are still protruding out. Some about 8 or 10 inches, which make it impossible for boats to come alongside without the risk of getting hold. So you know this has already been raised. So I think a visit down to Barra by somebody is long overdue to identify these things. I can send you on pictures if it helps in the meantime.
Thank you again, Chair. Yeah, if there's things like bolts sticking out, then that's an easy fix, and it's something that I'll speak to our port operative after this meeting and try and get him an engineer around to do something like that. I mean, that anything like that to see if that is reported to us will be done. So that's the first I've heard of the actual where there's bolts still sticking out. So I'll have a look at that as soon as we're clear here.
Okay, can we actually look at putting the fendering back in rather than getting rid of the bolts, since the original purpose of the bolts was to hold fendering in place?
Yeah, I think the fendering at Ardvinish is it's actually quite it's a bigger fix than just the fendering. So I think then that's part of our assessment, and we have had the structural engineer looking at it. So I think it's a case of estimating what it's actually going to cost, and then finding the funds to actually do something like that. I think what we found, and we're looking at the likes of Akershus, for instance, it's not a tens of thousands. It's like you're moving into hundreds of thousands of pounds once you start moving into pile works and things like that. So, I mean, I can speak to you again maybe later on today at some point, or when you get a chance, get a meeting with you and just discuss the assessment that we have and what what needs to be done.
So can be
Yeah.
sent fuel when they go get
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, that would be helpful. The bolt problem also exists at Battersea as well, with obviously smaller bolts and stuff, but the same kind of problem. So thank you anyway.
Appelleert Gornliche Thomas Suin.
Tapelov chanel min am bhil nach chumtí. Dúcht dó leis chun ina pointin na chaine me gin jalain. Inach cuanta díomh rí turbines chu nárt canig scoltún a mis mun a scolíon an scol hiabost farmuig far bhil at gomafa skillte agus gobriich turbine agus skeintach le prís an jalain in rás nach bug payback nu an soch fata.
Wat er ik zijn?
Thank you, Councillor Musk. We have in the past have had some turbines at schools. They were the very early models that came out. There were difficulties with having them on school grounds because there was an incident with one falling. I think nowadays you can find turbines that are a lot more robust, and it certainly will be something that we're looking at in the future. Some of the difficulties is just really having the balance of the amount of energy that's produced and being able to divert that into the grid if necessary. But yes, it is something that we will and should be looking at for the future to see what the benefits of turbines around about these either schools or our main buildings would be.
Okay.
Tapelov.
David, who's the next? No. Oh no. Aramet.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm not a member of your committee. Going back to where we were, I think Sweeney picked up the point as well. You alluded earlier, Calla, to the good payback from the turbine out at the recycling plant. I think going forward, I know we're talking 2030 here if the announcement is made for the new connection through Arnish. At some point by the end of this particular corner, if we're serious about maximising potential benefit of renewable energy, which we've talked about and it's been kind of consistently delayed. I think the meeting we had in here with SSE, I can't remember, was it Colombian who said that, John Cunningham said they first started talking about this in 2002. So at some point, we're going to have to get real if the connection comes. We've got three massive, certainly large enterprises building onshore wind farms who are hoping to benefit. They're waiting now for the cable. We've got two offshore wind companies who are going to put electricity across the island to Arnish as well. We need to be serious, I think, as well about can we maximise, the renewable energy potential on the islands as well. Obviously, there's a cost implication here, but as we've seen from what was Sustrans and Hytrans, the budgets of £300 million, which I'm sure you're balking at yourself when you see that kind of money getting spent on making cycleways and pathways, etc. when you don't have any money to fix the roads we've actually got on the islands. I'm all for making things more accessible for cyclists and pedestrians and safer, and pushing our aging population onto tricycles maybe. That's a good thing, but when your budget is particularly, I think it's what, 1.9 million for roads, we can see the anomaly there. But if we're serious about renewables, we need to start investigating the possibility as well of how we can maximise the benefit. And we've talked before, I think Councillor McCormack's brought it up on numerous occasions about, do the Corner start looking at maximising the potential for renewable energy? And I think that's possibly one for wider committees within the Corner as well. But we've also, like I said, bigger companies just now who are hoping to benefit from wind here. Maybe the community payback aspect that we're hoping to derive from them as well can be channeled into maybe some kind of energy payback for us. So I think we need to start widening our net and seeing if we can catch more of the energy benefits that we've always been alluding to for the last certainly 20 years on this island. We're talking about energy costs going through the roof, trebling of electricity prices, etc. We need to start exploring all the avenues so that we can reduce the cost to the Corner of maintaining our buildings and properties as well, schools particularly, and so revisiting that, I think turbine technology has probably taken huge leaps and steps forward. So I think probably several committees within the Cumhaireann are going to have to start looking at where we're going to be by the end of this term, when hopefully the cable is within touching distance. So I think we need to prepare for that and start making concrete steps to where we're going to be in, say, 4 years' time by the end of this particular session of the Cumhaireann. So I think investigating that is one of the priorities we need to start looking at. I know we're talking about budgets and lack of money, but we need to think beyond. I think you need to speculate, accumulate, and I think we need to start to get serious about how we can derive maximum benefit as well.
I would agree with you, and I think the benefit of what you're talking about is that if we're saving money or even generating money, that we can then, as you say, invest in other parts of the estate would be beneficial. So yes, I totally agree with that.
David?
Thank you, Chair. Moving on to municipal services interests for the committee. The services in general, frontline services, are pretty much back to normal. We have still noticed the Waste Horizons figures are still above pre-COVID figures, probably about 7%, which leads on to the rollout of new recycling collection services funded by the Recycling Improvement Fund. We do have the rollout of recycling collections to all of the areas in Lewis and Harris that don't have these services at the moment. That started this week. We finally got the comms signed off. Bit of a tortuous experience, but we have got there, and it's fully funded by the fund. Delivery of new vehicles has improved as well. So we've got 2 new refuse collection vehicles. One, the split body, delivered this month, and we've got the electric split body vehicle due for delivery still in January of next year. The 2 hook lift lorries, they're still not with us. They're probably the longest lead time I've ever seen, but they're now programmed for March 2023. We thought we'd have them in the summer this year, but we're still awaiting delivery of these ones. In terms of the curbside rollout, we're changing to 3 weekly collections as well. It's in line with the recycling charter, Scottish Government's recycling charter, code of practice, and alongside that, we'll be pushing to try and move waste away from landfill, which should help cover some of the landfill tax liabilities of that extra 7%, because 7% more waste going to landfill is equivalent to about £100,000 per year. So we want to make sure that we're moving more into recycling, so at least we can mitigate some of these costs. The new cell at Benidorm, it's fully operational. It was handed over on the 8th of August. Happy to say that the project, although it was expensive, it did come in just marginally under budget. Although we are already starting looking as to what we're going to do going forward, the cell only has a capacity that will take us to about 2026. There is the 2025 landfill ban for biodegradable municipal waste that we're still working on, but we still have to have waste capacity for all of the non-biodegradable waste, particularly from the commercial and industrial sector. So we've already started looking at options for the next cell. Bus services, we're still maintaining all services and still struggling a wee bit for access to PCV drivers. It is a national challenge. Noticed that it is something that's raised both not just locally but throughout the UK. But we're continuing to work and see what we can do to get more people trained and move forward. There is a subsequent report on evening bus services, so I can go into the bus service in a bit more detail then. Financially, again, as Cal has said, we're just constantly looking to see how we can keep costs down. It's very difficult with operational services when you're looking at fuel costs going up so high. the move from red diesel to white diesel for mobile and fixed plant at all our facilities. So, you know, these are challenges that are not really something that we have a lot of control over, but we'll do our best to try and keep things under control. Happy to take any questions.
Ishtinik, Dinas B. Reit mi cyfeir. Ew Karen ffadol o'ch yn y lam o'ch wrth
I'm going to go with big slow, Joe.
Am dos nach bin ik kisten of hat is in jo'n mejenig.
Thank you, David. Where are we with the rollout of the new skips and bins and stuff? I forget exactly what was coming and when it was and when they were going to come, and when can we look at seeing them trickle down to Barra?
We do have a number of skips in order at the moment. So, like most things at the moment, lead time seems to be an issue, but hopefully they won't be too far away. What we have done is we've reconfigured how we operate the small skips because of the movement away from what we call the Mac lift, the chain lift skips within our own services, and with two local private sector companies operating in the market, we felt that there was little point in us continue with that. So we have agreement to use some of the funding that we'd usually use to replace the skip lorry to add to our skip fleet on a regular basis. So that should help things going forward, although the cost of steel has gone up significantly, so we won't get as many as we had hoped. But you know, it'll be something that will be in the service rather than funding replacement lorry. We're replacing some of the skips on a more regular basis, so it should improve things.
So when can we expect to see them? Have you got a date yet on that, or
timeline, David?
Yeah, we're expecting skip deliveries probably within the next 3 to 4 weeks. There's no changes to the bins in Euston Barra at the moment. The service is not being reconfigured. We'll consider options for that once we've finalised all of the rollouts in Lewis and Harris.
Sheikh, Trina K. Again.
Tapalev.
Norman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, David. Could I ask David, what's the actual cost of a skip, to buy a skip?
That's a good question, really. We've been paying. If you look back 3 years ago, we were paying roughly about £4,000 for a skip plus about 800 or 900 for delivery. The last lot of quotes when we looked at this first were close on double that. So including delivery, you're looking at well over 9,000, although we think it's probably reduced to about 7,500 because the price of steel has actually come down a wee bit. So we by delaying our order, we managed to get the price a wee bit better.
Ronald.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief question to David regarding the new curbside recycling service for the west side of Lewis and Park. When does he hope that service to be rolled out in full?
We would expect probably, well, it is starting this week, so we are starting from the areas of the west side that don't have the service at the moment, and then moving on to Uig and Bernra, Lochs and Harris. So I would hope that we'd have all the bins in place Probably by Christmas, maybe just after Christmas. We're running a wee bit behind schedule because we only got the leaflets delivered last week. The first batch were all had to go back and be recycled.
Oh, well, I look forward to receiving my new bin in the next few weeks. Thanks.
Right, Harit Bickel Gor Hishtinan. Verpuila kundige anask art fanier. Ja, dag bluf. Kusper Shia, Kambage Sparku ek pluggen Harle. Anask zo shide unte die aardige Riolten Rianach ek pluggen dus Harle, maar haminetje ek eren shech punt hun te nask. In die een term het keimel is anask is fikri kisten sabi. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, with a notable increase in the amount of visitors we've had coming into the Western Isles in the last number of years, there has been reports coming back to ourselves of overnight camping, motorhoming within the car parks of the Cornwall cemeteries. But as there's a photograph in Appendix 2 which actually shows somebody overnight camping actually within the grounds of one of our cemeteries. So that's raised concerns, as you can imagine. The colleagues in Highland have had similar issues and have amended their cemetery management plans to prohibit overnight camping, overnight parking within the car parks and also the grounds of their cemeteries. So we're looking to do the same ourselves to ensure that this is not a feature as we move into potentially a sunny 2023. So I'm happy to take any questions anyone has.
Ishtinek then you should be, Michael Shaw. Gordon.
Thanks, Chair. Just to thank Mr. Campbell and Mr. Langley for taking this forward on this report, because it did create quite a bit of unrest in the community about these what was happening. So thank you very much for taking that forward, Mr. Campbell.
Jimshu seinig en nog zo is ik een klug on the noodlux en zo'n grauwe wil ook maar gebied.
Yes, Chair, we'd be looking to erect signs following the decision to amend the management rules at all the car parks at the cemeteries that Cornwall have.
Is dat wat toeliet, dat kan je geloven, maar hij zegt het hoe veel je wat daar stij gaat eeuwen, en Peter kun je zeggen veel noas, nog Peter.
Yes, but our colleagues in Highland have had the success has been to actually put the signs up. There's been a number of things with cemeteries, whether it be people accessing cemeteries using it as you mentioned for bird watching or for shortcutting or walking of animals. So we'll be looking at revising everything as we go forward.
I rotele han ik bar, die ga je baan ja, she toen je toch toch een kluggen like coins, kan je salers kan het scoop get fall off. As a dewy, kwan as a dewy. Well, she niet even een husbar.
It's not been an issue that's been mentioned too many times. We have had an issue. It has cropped up where we've had representation from, our Sandwich Cemetery. The sign at the gate states that dogs must be kept on leads at all times. So we'd expect that, as we put a sign up at the cemetery, I think the signs that will be erected will have all of the expectations of what we're looking for market respect in and around these areas.
Johnny.
Hi, thank you, Chair. This is probably sadly a sign of the times because people are finding difficulty finding accommodation. Cemeteries certainly have plenty of beds, but sadly no breakfast.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief question for Ian. With regards to managing these new restrictions, who will be policing it? Will it be the council or the local police constabulary or a combination of both?
Thanks. For our own cemeteries, we'll be policing that ourselves. When we had the notification of the incident in August, where somebody had pitched the tent, as in the photograph in Appendix 2. By the time officers got up to that cemetery, they'd packed their tent and left. However, we'd expected that if anybody was to see, activities such as that in around the cemetery, they would contact ourselves in the first instance.
That's a question, Chair. Do we have the resources for this?
Well, the honest answer is, we're all pushed and for time of what we do. However, in an incident surrounding such things as a cemetery, we'd ensure we would have the resource available, whether that be a colleague or myself or colleagues in the other islands to go out and address that.
Gorlach McNair.
Could we look at extending this to non-corridor cemeteries as well by offering signage, at their own cost, obviously, to non-corridor cemeteries, because it makes sense to make it across the island total ban. And I've actually seen examples of tents that have been pitched on the outside of cemetery walls, so that as well as being inside, being right next to it is just as disturbing. Thank you.
Ian.
Thank you, Chair. We'd be quite happy to speak to privately owned and run cemeteries to provide guidance for them as if they wish to implement such things in their own management plans.
Yeah,
Thank you. That's good.
George.
Thanks, Ian. What can you do when you go to a cemetery and the camper van there?
I think if you were to turn up at a cemetery and there's a camper van parked in the car park, the first instance would be to notify ourselves, particularly if it's a corner-owned cemetery. What could I do? Well, I think the first and foremost thing we'd do would be to go and speak to the person to ask them to remove themselves. Should that not be the case, would be enrolling the assistance of the local Police Scotland.
George, Tolly.
Good luck with that.
I may be back here next year giving you an update.
En jaar Chiro's on Tille at the laugh suas. Oh, hi, fall off.
Testing.
Heb je hem met die gered mee? Wel, boeile kundige, normaal in extra in de hun. Ja. Leva, kuspere sheikh, kshedevischen was. Anarchok. Geri or pechkige heroïnen zo'n schedevischen was en janari zo'n skiën loche toe uit een den chier aan de leeuws bini David McLeod Shalash guys frikti Kirsten Sabi. David.
Thank you, Chair. This report looks at the current evening bus service provision in Broadbay and the feeder run from the west side. We do have evening bus services provided from early evening bus services provided from Ness and North Lochs into Stornoway for primarily used by those who have evening workers, and we have noticed an increase since the under 22 free travel option has been extended. These services were looked at prior to COVID. The numbers were declining, and it was considered that we should look at a community transport option if there was one available. Post COVID-19 and with the current cost of fuel, and also the under 22 free travel option, we have noticed that numbers have increased significantly and are a lot better than they were when we looked at them before. the number of people using for work is also fairly significant in terms of passenger numbers. The recommendation originally was to look at continuation to the end of the current contract, which is October 2026. But having reviewed the financial position with the subsidy adjuster on all school and public transport services been running so high with both the fuel prices, the cost of living prices, and the general inflationary situation that the community finds itself in, we are actually spending a lot more on the subsidy adjuster than we have any year previous. So I'm proposing an amendment to the recommendation that it's continued to October 2023 with a review to be carried out prior to that. So we'll bring a report back to the September 2023 series whenever the date of that is confirmed. Happy to take any questions.
Take this to me. And you? Oh.
It's difficult. There's a bus runs in front of my house, up and down to the airport, in and out to Melbourne, and all the point buses. I can't remember when I saw more than 1 or 2 people on it, and it seems just difficult to sustain. Would you agree?
I think what we have done is we've made the bus journeys a lot longer, which for some people makes it less convenient. But what we have found, looking at the numbers, there are legs of journeys depending on the timing, where a bus is actually going in the wrong direction, let's say, for passengers, but it's got to get to the end of the run to come back in, and they're picking up passengers on the opposite journey. So there is a bit of positioning involved. So sometimes looking at bus services, you see what looks like an empty bus going nowhere, but it's actually going to pick up more people coming the other way. We also have a position where we use the low floor accessible coaches, not coaches, but midi buses for all of our bus and Corla services in the Broad Bay. There are times where you could easily accommodate the number of passengers with a minibus, but the two negatives of that are that you would need to have another vehicle and pay for another vehicle. They also, a minibus doesn't have the same accessibility for somebody either in a wheelchair or in a pram. So there are advantages of using a vehicle that can take twice as many passengers as you need that are not quite so obvious. We also run the evening bus services for Bus na Córa. You can see that the price comparative for the two routes, the Lochs and the Point and the road down to Tolster route, they are similar to a minibus run, and that's because we're not taking any vehicle overheads other than the fuel and the driver to do that. It's almost like an add-on. So it is quite challenging. It's reassuring that the numbers are improving, and if we look at it again next year, I would hope that that's something that we can evidence that it's improved to another stage in terms of moving people out of cars into public transport. I think the under 22s is something that's taken a long while to gather momentum, but I think with the cost of fuel at the moment, if parents can put people on, under 22s, not necessarily parents, but if they can choose to travel on a bus for free rather than paying for fuel, then that should help the passenger numbers.
Norman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, David. Originally, I did welcome the recommendations. 3.1b expire to October 2026, but I'm not so keen on that October 2023. I know the service is not sort of well used, but there are a couple of people, workers, one in particular, who is unable to get a driving license due to medical reasons, and the timing of the the bus just suits him, the kind of work he has. Okay, so he was in contact with me long before about when it all came about, would there be any evening service or not, and he was very worried, because the worry is that if that bus wasn't there for him, I know it's only one person, but I mean 1 person, 10 persons, who are we serving? You know, we are a core. There could be more coming, but basically he'd struggle to work. In fact, he would probably have to stop working. That's without having to get a taxi to work and back every sort of evening and that. So I wouldn't want the recommendation to be changed to October 2023. I'd like to leave it the way it is. Thank you.
Chair, if I could just say that the extension would be for a year with a review to be carried out, and it would come back to, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't necessarily be, it's only being extended for a year, so it would be a year with the option to continue should the financial position be and the will of the coroner be that it is continued. I think what we have to bear in mind is that the cost of the adjuster in terms of the subsidy adjuster is probably more than double what the two of these items are put together. So that's something that we have to look at, you know, whether the coroner can continue to afford to actually to do this. And that's a decision, you know, that we would make that the coroner would make in September of next year. So it would be prior to you know, a cancellation of service, let's say.
I should praise that. Almost so.
Tablof gaan je met een wal en gemet die tjoch zo'n tijdje getri naar hoe de een goeie mag klaar aan het gaan met tiks maar dat meer nog als je meer in Euvlion en draast. Ach, sheikh, wat kunt er nog zo maar el dunje maar je toch dunje het shadow was dunje tot buai het coins nog maar ga je stu dunje askide en husier has een dolle hort buai de coins nog kan zo je adun pakken gaan ach ha holle njach tot buai het coins nog Shirutelle var med som tokal hok David aan het brinje ne gaan jullie samt in naam gaan ik hem draagt in naam kjaste worden ach ne passichen was to ios solution halu low access whatever ga je nog ook al luims we gaan naar hier blaadje je begeul vitolus Jorneweg ach Chanayat even ne passichen uur show gaan je ne low access buses als je naar tele gaan je Amerikaans gaat kalen zo'n weer de jaren of met je zo'n faculty tussen stokkel schudden tot buai en na de scheugen sorin school naski ach na goedingijf rollen ne passichen tele Tablof.
So ik niet zo als je ten over vriend, dan gaan je tallen, dan gaan je koos het nou daar zitten, zit kerst. So als je kundig in een molly en ik David is een aardig, dan ga je in je jasje in aan de blier Nederland. Als je tallen til is je zo. Hij is me nog je tallen, dat we zo koos het nou zo. So Derek daar kon je in. Derek,
sorry. I'm just wondering if David could address this. That will have financial implications, extending it to 2026. So would that be dependent on existing budget of Anne MacDonald from Finance coming on the financial implications?
Anne?
Hello, yes.
it would have a financial implication if it was continued into 2024 and 25.
That would have to be addressed in the amendment.
So give me känna vid skitdåligt som amendment, men jag tycker amendment är just.
Identify the funding source. But any amendment with financial implications would have to identify the funding source. Councillor MacLeod would help. You would have the opportunity to move an amendment at full core when the decision report comes up. That would give you an opportunity to discuss with officers any potential amendment, including the financial implications of it.
So, kies je ten draast te tellen, als je kundige lesenaren, kan maar ook al.
Well, if Councillor MacLeod is moving amendment just now, then you're moving the recommendations as amended, and Councillor with sorry, the amendments that the changes that Mr. MacLeod had made, and that including that a further report, the service will be reviewed, and a further report would come back to the September series. You're moving these recommendations, and it'll give Councillor MacLeod an opportunity to speak to officers, including officers in finance, to couch an appropriate amendment which takes account of the financial situation. So the financial implications of the amendment.
Should toilet lezen? Aha. So als je kundige draast le lesen aardigen. Aha, nog verkeerd goed. Oké. Schulke lentel zit. Leva bors na Callian. Gusper alleen is zo'n pech na comedy voor glisten is maar bors na Callian. Goeie en geine buil ha kutremig sa ha en glisten is rechkel show. Agus goeie kutig naar geine session traini luch glisten is code sabeltjach pusht maar a hele klaar is de maas de shiav la ek da uid en zijn jomer agus trouw MS Teams. Kusper hoog, ha naast show er zo'n visserige en minige. Oh, wolf.
IT back in. I don't go on to contain that journal just now for coffee. Sort out the mic.
Wel, zo'n staat zo'n 10 minuten, zo'n koekpan koffie, no tea. Cleva, 10 minuten. En is hem karos in. Je wil zo'n over kistdekken te gaan nog.
I just, I welcome the updated position you see, which has seen significant improvement in the harbours and requirements that were clearly required there. Just on Appendix 1 there, 3.31, just removal of the Fisheries Joint Consultative Committee, because that's no longer in existence. So just for the removal of that from it. I don't know, should member officer working group or anything be replaced in it or whatever.
Penny?
Yeah, as in, yeah, I can remove that from it, but whether there's something that should take over from it, then I think it was a useful.
Yeah, the fisheries JCC's remit has been subsumed by the primary industries member officer working group. So if that's substituted, I'll speak to Kenny after the meeting.
Okay. Culture general.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. Is het dinges beerle? Wanneer? Zo kundige zo'n naast gehaft wanneer. Ja. Blijven kusper nu urige is planerierig kies gauw zo'n konast van hulten. Naast getorst visserige feisige naast jedenig die hoogste hun is planerierig van hulten is gauw na vastgeving na haas zo'n eindige. Kuttige aminige koers de ga den flanna. Het doelkundig panichen koers de hun als ga aan feitige door jedigen doelig. Daar wiele ja herricht. Die allem mechanisch aan aanschrijven is die kisten se bij. Allem.
Thank you, Chair. This report in front of you is a final report on Cycle 1 flood risk management actions. Cycle 2 flood risk management plan has already come in front of the Corla and will be published in December this year, next month. So this report is looking at Cycle 1 update. I'm happy to take any questions on it.
Kisten, ik denk het bij. Wanneer? Verpuile kundige is wel ik 3 punten hun. Ja? Prima. Dus bij het dief, of is een uist, en als je unde die lessige kudjesen of is zoekpulte aan een nieuwe stroeëren dus gereeld naar alle persoon project tasbinig uitje. We gaan broodje de kolonie in mijn boer nog geld is een €4 eerlijk laag ergens aan op ik boeien oprecht tokkel je sloeg aan een nieuwe staan dreig eertes aan een vastgeving naar huis. Agus bíní column mar cynnig is an áisgeis ficti a Kirsten Sabay.
Thank you, Chair. This is an opportunity for us to run a demonstrator project funded by Scottish Government, where we're looking at providing flexible workspaces. So we're looking at two particular sites in US just now, Glaze House, which has become vacant, and which can be a flexible workspace. So the project would look at upgrading that property and providing adequate facilities there. Also looking at the Ballyvanich offices and looking at a wing in these offices to make them more flexible workspaces. We're working with other public sector partners and the voluntary sector on this, and this project is actually looking at upgrading the facilities and making them available for others. It'll also look at where there are community facilities and creating visibility for those who may want to use flexible office facilities to see what's available and hopefully come up with some kind of common booking system. So there's examples of this working particularly well in Ireland, where flexible workspaces have been used for creating location agnostic employment opportunities. So that basically means that large corporations actually employ people, and it doesn't matter where they live, as long as they have the facilities. So it's part of the regeneration working or repopulation working group as well, to see what benefits we can get out of flexible workspaces. So there's an application I've prepared. It's in the appendix to the report. So I'm looking for the Colas approval to proceed with this project.
Christian, ik denk spee. Staff here.
I think flexible working spaces are always a good idea. But I'm aware as well, like in North US, I think Ladakh Kirkubus Center, they're doing like a digital hub working spaces. So is that duplication, or are you liaising? No, are we all investing in? Because I think I heard North US Development Company were talking about doing similar things in Lochmadi School, the old Lochmadi School. So are we?
It will be complementary. Part of this project is actually getting visibility of what everybody's doing. There is a need that the COLA have and the public sector partners have as well. So whatever we're doing here, it has to be complementary. As you pointed out, it's pointless if there's an over provision.
Yeah.
So the part of this project will actually look at how that visibility and collaboration between all these groups, whether voluntary or public or private.
And is there a way, like in I haven't seen the application, so maybe I should have looked at it first before maybe you've done it. In terms, there's quite few part of the housing stock in Balabani, especially that's occupied by businesses and maybe offices and things. Is a part of this strategy maybe to try to find a way to get this housing stock freed for maybe housing and move these businesses toward using this flexible?
That would be part of the benefit of what we're doing. I think it is actually mentioned in the application.
Sorry, as I said, yes, so it could be there. Yeah.
This is an enabler to, make the provision. People can use flexible workspaces, free up other accommodation for other uses. So it's all tied up into the one.
Eva, Ronliche McNeil.
Happily, much needed. Workspace and office spaces in much demand, but should we not be looking at putting Glaze House back to its original purpose as a house, considering your housing crisis, and look at other alternatives for open office space and stuff?
The COLA can certainly decide to do that. Glaze House is in a good location where the provision is required for flexible workspaces. There are other opportunities as well for other properties which could be taken back into housing. So yes, this is meant to be a complete benefit. But as far as Glaze House is concerned, it is in a good location. It's next to the school. It's where there's very little provision just now. So that's the proposal. If the COLA decide to do something else with it, then I'm happy to follow that.
Well, I was kind of thinking with the new project in Eriskay, there's a community hall close by. We've got the new Croxtoliad building. We've got Storrs. We've got Dulba School, and we've got many community halls that could be adopted to put office space into them, I'm sure. Which wouldn't really be suitable for housing in any of these buildings. This house is a purpose-built house, and we've seen the problems that we had in Balabani already, putting offices and shops into houses. So I think we should seriously look at going down the housing route rather than the office route for purposes and look at other alternatives.
Alan, can't you use it? Anything?
If that's the will of the committee, not to approve this report, I mean, it is an opportunity here to progress with these office hubs. It's an opportunity that we can, it's likely we'll get funded to do so. If you want me to pull the application just now, then that's the result of what not doing the work on Glue's House would entail. But I wouldn't recommend that option. I'm recommending that we proceed to upgrade Glue's House just now as a flexible workspace.
Kan je liksom de bergkek med karlichen så skide ball igen. Garlichen magnele morg gleeshuis goeie jasna heikoni en atina. Hij som tine bergen ek hora kus skide.
Hi, Chair. Thank you. Thanks, Calla. In a ballpark figures for adapting it, A, to housing, or B, to the proposal that's before us today. What kind of, and this is just an opinion I'm asking you for, what kind of money are the Scottish Government proposing to give us for that? Thanks.
The cost for refurbishment, but it's a single brick house, no insulation, so we're looking at taking it up to net zero standards. Ballpark with 250,000–300,000 pounds. We were looking at getting full funding for doing that.
Anders?
I'm doing a translation, Malcolm. What was the question? Sorry.
Well, as aware that Councillor McNeill was proposing, we look at converting Glee's House back into a house rather than an office space, basically.
Okay. It's a discussion we've had before. There are a number of other properties we're looking at to convert into housing. So I think if we get them over the line in terms of a model, then it might be something we could look at in the future, possibly. But at this stage, I'm not sure.
You always have that option in the future. I mean, the upgrade works, as explained, would be substantial to it, potentially funded by Scottish Government. So I think it's a great opportunity to get it up and running in the area. And if the council in the future decide to further change it back to domestic dwelling, then you have that opportunity. But I think we've got a good opportunity just now to follow up this application positively and get money into upgrading that building.
Also in relation to the previous work that was done last term in terms of satellites and hubs and being able to work within your own community, I think there's very limited opportunities in especially the south end of South Uist and Eriskay for people to do that. So they're having to travel down to Balwanich office, or I suppose it's a halfway house in terms of working from home, but also maybe having that ability to work with colleagues and across different agencies if possible. So I would be in favour of the proposal.
Staffa.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'll probably just be repeating what Calla was saying just now. I think the opportunity is there. I can see what Councillor McNeill is talking about housing, but I think taking the opportunity with the Scottish Government money to improve the building itself, and then that give us future option without having to look at more money to spend, and I think I would support the proposal to move the application forward.
Okay, tack för det. Councillor MacLeod.
Ach, lieber Harry. Yeah, I think, yeah, to take advantage of any funding we can get to bring it up to the kind of required standards at the moment. And yeah, if in future it's something we need to look at to convert it to housing, you know, let's go that way. But South Houston in particular seems to be quite difficult to get land and places for housing there at the moment, according to my colleagues at FHP anyway. So it's something we need to bear in mind as well.
Only McNair, we will something yash.
And yet,
I'm political layer. No, me holiday.
I mean, me holiday and me getting called it out again.
Play that. So wel boy la kundige is een wonderlijk 3 punje hound. Ah, I believe. En daar gusper alleen is aan de diaber, ga is een kusper 3 tiek ek geniede show. Agus a shen asken hasi heen, agus a shen is zo'n huisliger, maar er wordt kestig dan is er bij. En neer. Het is een nest aan de diaber is zo'n pechtige het kusper in de hundiek is a gagiek aan de diaber. Behoor, dan hof ik een immergie